to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. It's been a minute. Zach Owens here with the brand new co-host of Inside the Film Room, Mr. Johnny Sobczak. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Hello, Zach. Hello, everyone that's listening. I am back and officially
Here
the
to
new
stay.
co-host. I'm here to stay. I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving.
Coming out hot. Right
as
off
Jordan
the gate.
Belfort would say. But yeah, no, I am super excited to be here. I think, just in the last, week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, with all the things that have been going on, film news has been picking up. And at the same time, inside the film room has been picking up. We've been getting some new followers, getting some new traffic, and expanding the community. So,
And now, hopefully, obviously, we'll get into that in a little bit with the Dune stuff, but hopefully this coincides well with you making your appearance now as co-host. That all those people who are like, oh, I follow this guy just because of Dune news, and now they're like, oh, okay, I'll listen to the podcast now because it's the Dune guy.
This is definitely. I think people will be pleasantly surprised by the quality of the podcast and just getting to listen to, because they know us, but getting to actually listen to us talk and have a conversation, I think is going to be cool and fun for everyone. So
right. So we miss Jake, of course, but Johnny is here. It's in great hands, and you're still stuck with me. So I hope that wasn't a deal breaker. But welcome, Johnny. We're glad to have you here. We've got a sort of a strange episode here to get started with, because it's like, again, you said stuff is starting to get back to normal, but still not completely normal. So it's not really like a full, we've got our news to talk about. We've got a ranking that we're going to hit. But then there's not really like a full movie review. Johnny, I'll let him explain to you, but he saw a movie. What was the deal there? I
made the journey to Virginia from where I live in Zach lives in North Carolina. I spent 8.5 hours in the car. I was gone from the apartment for 13 hours. But I saw Tenet in IMAX, and I have a lot of thoughts about the movie. So
we're gonna talk about that, and we're not gonna, because of how limited it is right now, we're not gonna dive deep into it. Like he said, I haven't seen it, so he is gonna kind of do just like a general thoughts, the movie going experience, talk about that, getting back into the theater. But it's not going to be for everyone out there who's listening and doesn't want it spoiled. Don't worry. Johnny's going to do his best not to do any of that.
Nope.
But I know you made the trek, and meanwhile I am literally 15 minutes away. I have a movie theater that is open just across the border in South Carolina, the opposite way. And I'm not going because, like our good friend of the podcast, Josh, he was talking, he'd done a little more research than I did about this theater. No reserved seating, no way to book your seats in advance. So it's like, there's no guarantee of how many people are going to be there ahead of time. You don't know who you're sitting by. So it's an all around sketchy situation to try and go into. So I'm sitting this one out, and Johnny had first dibs on the Tenet review, which will be up on the website by the time you're listening to this. So if you have seen it and want the full breakdown, go check that out. Great review.
For sure.
So it's been a while since the last time that you heard from us. Johnny was actually on that last he was on this penultimate episode. Then Jake had a send off. Then you had 2 episodes of just me with a guest. We had Rebecca Davidson on here and Drew Goins. for our all-timers series, but that didn't really pan out the way that we had hoped. I had hoped to do that as a weekly series for a couple weeks, but things got really busy. When you get a new dog, when your dad falls off a ladder and has to go for emergency surgery and is now hobbling around the house, I have to help him out. I'm still looking for full-time jobs, so it's been a stressful couple weeks. Hasn't really been conducive to a podcast schedule. So I am excited to get back to normal here with Johnny. But that series, All Timers, will continue when we have a lull in content. When we need something, it'll be like a one-off episode here and there. We'll even let Johnny come in with an All Timers so we can talk a little Blade Runner, I believe.
Hey,
but
I definitely got one planned.
So whenever we need something, that's there for us to draw from. But Johnny, again, any updates, life updates? What's going on since the last time we heard you?
Yeah, no, it's just been slow and steady. I am also looking for a full-time job.
Hire us.
Yeah, so we're both based in North Carolina. I'm looking for some job as a reporter, something in the journalism field. So hey, if you're listening, you got anything open, someone who's got something open, send me an email or shout me out on Twitter. But yeah, so just looking for jobs and, keeping up with news as much as I can. It's kind of a double-edged sword because I hate not having a full-time job. I hate not working consistently. But it does offer me the opportunity to stay plugged in on social media, engage with our followers in the community and keep people up to date on what's happening, especially around Dune, which is the marketing machine for that is just getting up and running. And I've had a fun time, breaking some news on that and just, getting lost in the excitement of, kind of movies coming back slowly but surely and different things happening. So it's been fun. It's been kind of slow. But hey, that's 2020 is moving on. We keep chugging along and
September, man.
I can't believe it.
It's been the fastest, shortest, longest year at the same time.
I mean, it's unprecedented. I can't remember anything even similar to this. So
we just need some precedented times coming up.
100%.
So shall we get into, like I said, we got some news and right off the bat, I mean, this is it's already, we're trying to get this at the start of the podcast just because we don't want to shift tones too much, but it is just absolutely devastating news. No way to really ease into this, but obviously the tragic passing of Chadwick Boseman over the weekend. You were the one who actually shared the news with me via Twitter DM, sent it late at night. I was in bed, literally like getting ready to fall asleep, and you shared that. And it's one of those ones that, I mean, we obviously had Kobe Bryant earlier in the year, and this was like flashbacks to that almost of just like it just doesn't seem real. It's someone who's larger than life, so young, who is just, it like hits you in the stomach and you're like, there's no way that can be true. Because the way that you sent that one AP Entertainment link, I think, and I was clicking on the link and it wasn't loading. It took me to the homepage and I was like, oh, please God, let this be like some sort of, like they messed up, it's a typo, something like that. And then obviously that was not the case, but just devastating.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had the AP link sent to me in a DM and I saw it and I clicked on it and I read it. Obviously, it was very clear. It said Chadwick Boseman has died, due to colon cancer. And I read it like over and over. And then I was like Black Panther, this huge international superstar, who just in the last couple of years, even though he was an older guy, he was 43, not young up and comer, but he was just kind of breaking into big mainstream, blockbuster films. He, had done iconic roles before Black Panther. He did, Thurgood Marshall and James Brown, and of course Jackie Robinson 42, which was a big sports movie. So I sent it and I was shocked. I mean, I was completely taken out for like the rest of the night, just kind of, when you hear someone like that who's so famous and so, young and
there had been absolutely no indication of anything. Like, obviously this was all under wraps.
Yeah, no, it was very, no one knew. Yeah, no one knew he had such, terrible cancer and that it was so far along. And so it was very surreal and very hard to kind of, process, and, very emotional. I mean, it's not easy to, I think everyone, death is something that everyone understands to some extent as being, something that, you can kind of feel like a fear around, and just, not, some people don't really know when it comes to terms of, Kobe Bryant, you talked about earlier in the year. It's just like, how could someone that powerful, that famous, just no longer be around? Like, and that's, I think the hardest thing for me is, and it was the same thing with Kobe, and the same feeling I have now. It's just like, on a personal level, it's hard to wrap my head around the fact that someone who we saw in these huge movies, who had such a strong presence in so many different communities, we're never going to hear him speak again. We're never going to see him on, in a new film again, outside of the one that's coming up from Netflix at the end of the year, which I'm very excited about. I think that's, I'm so glad that we get one last performance that we can all kind of enjoy together. And I think that's very fitting. But yeah, it's just very, very hard to kind of understand that this person is, no longer in the same plane of existence as the rest of the world. And you've seen all those kind of beautiful tributes with the
Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan, like all these
people
different people who knew him best.
Yeah, and you have the you've seen people kind of reference and post the images from Black Panther where he's in like the spirit plane and he's visiting his father and talking to his father. Yeah, and it's just very, it's crazy how these things in retrospect, you attach this feeling to them and these different emotions. And it's very, very sad. And obviously we all wish that he had not been sick and not passed away, but it's a good moment to kind of put things in perspective, personally, and, in the entertainment industry, in the film industry, where, you don't know what people are going through. You don't know what the circumstances are. You don't know how long people have left. So, to see everyone talk about just how strong he was and people that knew him best, like you said, kind of just shine light on him even more than we already had, I think is it's a powerful moment, and it's beautiful in a lot of ways, but it is definitely a very difficult concept to wrap your head around, and kind of a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, I think that the biggest thing for me, like reading all of the tributes and the tweets and from people, whether it was, like I said, like Michael B. Jordan or Ryan Coogler, who like worked very closely with him on like one of his more recent stuff, or just like from someone who crossed paths with him once on like the set of like Jimmy Fallon or something like that, seeing that video of him reacting to fans. It's like, this is like one of those people who seems to be as good of a dude as like you would expect. Like everyone in Hollywood like has their persona, but this seems to be like someone who like actually lived it every single day, whether it was visiting with children with cancer who, while he himself was like battling in secret, like doing everything to help other people, that he was someone who like backed up everything that he presented for people to take him in as. But like you said, I mean, just I am very excited for the Netflix film Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. That's going to be emotional. I mean, already earlier this year, like the Storm and Norman scene from The Five Bloods, where his final scene, that's like a completely different experience now. And I have heard speculation that he had already recorded his voice casting for Marvel's What If, the animated series on Disney Plus. So there may be a final T'Challa performance there. But
yeah, that's going to be interesting. No, definitely, as you said, it's funny, Netflix, he got these two films this year, and the previous one, as in the context now, is definitely different and adds, I have goosebumps just kind of thinking about it. So yeah, it's definitely going to be powerful and emotional to go back and watch, whether it's Black Panther or The Five Bloods, and then of course the upcoming film, his last live action performance. It's interesting because it was already a film that was getting kind of some awards attention. People were considering, what are its chances in certain categories and acting and all that. And you have to imagine, I think Chadwick Boseman was already on the table as someone who people were thinking could maybe, get an Oscar nomination, have a chance to contend. And now, now, the fact that any sort of contention is going to be posthumous is very kind of surreal. And, it kind of brings me back, and I posted about this on Twitter, but the Heath Ledger news, when he died before The Dark Knight came out, I remember that, hearing that so vividly and finding out that he died. And this moment felt very similar. Someone whose great career is just kind of getting off the ground and is already cut short. And of course, Heath Ledger went on to win the Oscar for his performance in that. So, it's going to be, I can't wait to watch that movie. I can't wait to see him on screen again. But yeah, overall, just a horrible, unimaginable tragedy. And, obviously our, thoughts and condolences to his family and friends and everyone else who's been affected by this. But yeah, it's going to take some time to, move on from this. But that's the beautiful part of art and artists, and especially in film, is that they're always going to be around. You can always go back and watch Black Panther. You can always go watch The Five Bloods or 42. And, he's someone who's definitely is going to live on, even though he, could have been around for decades. His films will be around. So.
Again, like you said, just a great reminder of putting things into perspective. You don't know whether it's a celebrity or your own family. You never know what could be the last day, what's going on. So just make sure to take everything day by day and tell your people you love them and all that stuff. So, again, no good transition here to go in or out of this news, but just we had to talk about that, as big of an icon as he was. So moving on, like you said, theaters reopening. You've been starting to get some new movies. We'll talk Tenet in a little bit, but New Mutants. Is this the weirdest thing that has happened in 2020? The fact that New Mutants finally actually came out.
It's pretty weird. It got delayed over and over.
5 times, I think.
And they were talking about reshoots and scrapping the entire film and beginning again. And apparently they didn't. It came close, I think, before Disney bought them.
You've got kids like Maisie Williams, who she was like, this is just complete estimation, but say she was like 16 when they started filming it back in 2015, and now you reshoot and she's like 20. How does that work?
Exactly. And so I don't know. This was a film from the very inception that I was never interested in. I don't know these characters. Josh Boone is not a filmmaker that I'm terribly familiar with, or am a fan of, obviously. And I thought it'd be kind of cool, something if they tried to go the horror route, something a little bit different. The X-Men films have varied greatly in quality, and greatly in style as well. So I'm willing to give anything a chance, but it was never anything I was very excited for. And then, of course, the excitement just dwindles and dwindles more and more with all the delays. And now it's come out, and I have no interest or even real.
You're not going to risk your life to see this?
I have no interest or even possibility of seeing it in a very easy manner or safe manner. So I'm definitely going to have to, let that one slide.
I know they can't put it on Disney Plus right away, but maybe they could expedite the process after the theatrical release.
I'm sure they will. And even then, I don't think, given what the reception has been so far, 33% Rotten Tomatoes, even the fan reception of people who have seen it, it's very mixed, like half and half. So I just don't see myself even taking the time to sit down and watch this if it were to be on Disney Plus and I have, access to it. It's just,
I would watch it out of curiosity.
Yeah. Definitely, I could definitely understand that. And I do like Maisie Williams. I do like Anya Taylor-Joy. And it's just very, very weird. And as you say, kind of one of the weirdest things, especially, obviously in the film industry, that has finally happened in 2020. And I think it's going to kind of come and go. And that's it. It's going to just die out as in a fitting way, I think, for the process it took to get released in the first place.
You talked about mixed reviews from fans, but I think the highlight of this whole process for me was Maisie Williams on Twitter. I don't know if you saw it, but Forbes posted their review, which I didn't even know Forbes did movie reviews, but headline, review, New Mutants is the worst X-Men movie ever. Maisie Williams tweets that link. Sounds like a must-see. Get your tickets now. Like, she is so done with this movie, like ready for New Mutants to be dead and gone, like far behind her. It's the way that your cast is just doing that is just incredible.
Yeah, no, I gotta imagine for people when you're involved in something like this, it's gotta be difficult because you put in your time and effort, and you did the job, and now it's just kind of something that's hanging over your head. And if it's a film that's not particularly good, it's kind of a bummer that your career is moving on and you're trying to make new moves and improve your stock and everything, and you have this kind of not so good movie that's just still coming out and even after you've made progress on your own. So it's a weird scenario, and I feel for everyone. But yeah, I between the comments Josh Boone has been making, and I saw that the creator of the characters in this movie of the New Mutants, his name was misspelled in the credits of the movie.
Just an all around
incompetence on every level.
Yeah.
So I can't support that personally, but if you are a fan of New Mutants, in the comics or something, and you go watch it, or if you're hoping to enjoy it, I hope you do. But for me, I'm over it. I'm not interested. So.
I think like Maisie Williams and Anya Taylor-Joy, like all those, the like rising stars of this crew, they need to get like Taylor Swift's media team involved, the way that she like scrubbed Cats from her, people forgot like a week after Cats came out and was a disaster. It was like Taylor Swift had zero association with that movie. So they need to get the same people in charge to like scrub the New Mutants from their resume.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Again, like we said, Tenet is also out, doing a little bit better than New Mutants. But New Mutants did get to boast that it was the #1 movie in America for that one weekend when it was like that and Unhinged. Like those were like the two, and David Copperfield.
Hey, Unhinged declared itself the #1 movie in the world when it was only one out. So,
hey,
technically
true. I guess, yeah, you're not wrong. So, but
you got to.
I know you have been keeping up pretty closely with the box office stats from Tenet. Do you have any off the top of your head here that you?
Well, I said a month ago. I said 2 months ago. They just need to go ahead and get this out. It's a cluster for the studio, the theater chains, everyone involved. And I said, I think if they stagger it, I think if they do it in places where it's safe, different countries and parts of the United States, where obviously the United States is a big market and where a lot of box office comes from, I think that they'll have a decent result. I think they'll get some good numbers. I think theater chains will be happy. I think that the studio will be happy. And right now, in its international opening, which occurred basically over the last week, 41 markets, $53 million. And I said on Twitter, a couple days ago, Dunkirk opened in more territories in 2017, not during a pandemic, and only made $2 million more during its international opening weekend. So this is
pretty competitive.
This is a big win for WB. This is a big win for Nolan's. It's good for the theater chains who are still struggling and need cash flowing in. And hopefully the safety protocols have been followed. In other countries, not that aren't the United States, they're a lot more competent and it's a lot safer to go to the movies. And so I feel totally good about what they're doing overseas. It's more murky and questionable in the US, but this is very good. And it's going to be, it's going to be a marathon as far as the box office and turning a profit and cutting even and all that. But this movie could very well run into November, December, even in 2021. And I think that will be a good model. I think that's something that the few remaining large films for this year could follow and probably will follow, including, No Time to Die and Black Widow. And then WB, of course, also has Wonder Woman 1984 and Dune on the horizon. So this is, as of right now, great news. We just hope that the COVID numbers remain at the same level or even hopefully decrease, and that this doesn't cause any issues with that. So it's good. It's good.
Yeah, it's trending in the right direction for, yeah. I guess obviously you would want this to make like as much money as possible, but I would say that this is definitely been a success for,
yeah. And this movie
it's the best that in the current situation, it's the best that they could have hoped for.
Right. And this movie in particular, Tenet, it's an original film. it doesn't have any crazy big stars. You know, John David Washington's still kind of on the up and coming slope from Ballers on HBO and Black Klansman, but you know, this bodes well, especially for movies that are projected to do better. You know, like Wonder Woman or James Bond, or an MCU film like Black Widow, would reasonably do better numbers if they even came out now. But in a couple months, 3-4 months, you know, you hope that COVID is more under control and numbers are continue to go down. So this is by all accounts good news, and hopefully it'll give more opportunities for, you know, everyone in every level of the chain to get some success happening again. And Tenet in general, and with Christopher Nolan, I think was kind of a sacrificial lamb in some respects, because even it may not get its budget back, but I think it was what WB and Nolan were willing to do to kind of cut a deal with the theaters and keep them open and reopen on a somewhat strong note. So, right.
Last movie to talk about here in this reopening segment is Antebellum, which is it's come out internationally. The embargo has lifted, but still US based, it doesn't come out until September 18th. So we've got a ways to go. We'll have a review on the site coming that week. I think September 14th maybe. But I have not seen it yet. Johnny has not seen it. Pretty mixed reviews. This is, of course, the horror film starring Janelle Monáe that kind of revolves around like this time travel slavery, like this very confusing storyline, it seems. But I was excited for it, but right now it's at a 31% on Rotten Tomatoes. But I've seen like extremes on both sides. Variety called it like a mind-blowing thriller, talking about like how great it was. But then I don't remember the source, but I sent it to you yesterday. The review that said that it was like the worst movie of the year, which that's two very different opinions there. So I mean, maybe I would like to fall on the higher side, but at least maybe somewhere in the middle, because I think I've seen some pretty bad movies so far this year that it would be hard to beat.
Yeah. I never really had much expectation for this. I think it would have been cool to see, you know, if it wasn't a pandemic going on. I think with my A-list, subscription with AMC Theaters, I think maybe I would have spent one to go see it just to check it out.
Right.
But now, you know, of course it's going to VOD, and I'm just not willing to shell
that $20 price point is tough. It's tough
just,
pill to
I pay that for a month of AMC Theaters, and I can see basically, 15, 12 movies if I want. So it's just not adding up as far as I'm concerned. And with these reviews certainly don't help its case. I hope, that it's not a total failure, just because, the more success right now, the better. And of course, Janelle Monáe having her own starring vehicle for once is really cool for her. And that's exciting. So, it's a bummer to get such a mixed response, and, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I'm be curious to hear what you think, of course, and what Inside Film Room's review is going to be like. But
stay tuned.
Not terribly surprising from where I'm standing, but a bummer nonetheless.
All right, Johnny, this is your piece of news here. I'm going to let you take the lead on this one.
Ladies and gentlemen, basically, for those of you who don't keep up with us on Twitter or follow the website as closely as maybe some others, the Dune teaser trailer, a teaser advertising a full official trailer that's coming online September 9th. This teaser is accompanying some screenings, not exactly clear how many or which theaters, but some screenings of Tenet abroad and in the United States. And this news wasn't officially confirmed until, I believe it was Wednesday of last week.
Wednesday morning, yeah.
Wednesday morning of last week. And,
how did that news get confirmed?
Well, this news was broken by yours truly. I managed to, on Tuesday of last week, a week ago today, I managed to get some information from contacts in the UK and in Canada. And this was, people had been highly, anticipating this Dune trailer. And it just made sense. Hey, Tenet is a big release. It's from Warner Brothers, the same studio. When is this Dune trailer coming out? And Timothée Chalamet himself tweeted earlier in the month, hey, trailer before September. So everyone was looking. It was the last week of August, and it didn't look good for its odds of coming out. And so I was curious, and I heard from multiple sources that there is a teaser, but it is not the full trailer, and it is going to be running with Tenet very soon. And I was amazed at first that was the route that Warner Brothers was going to go. At the same time, it was kind of a cool idea and interesting decision on their part. So I, was able to corroborate it. It sounded like it was very official. And then as I was typing it up, late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, I got in contact with someone else, and I was actually able to lay eyes on the teaser. And it was so awesome to finally see footage from this movie, a movie I've been looking forward to for 3-4 years now. And I was able to do a summary in the article, which you can find on InsideTheFilmRoom.com, and break it down for everyone. And it was just very rewarding to finally confirm, after weeks of speculation, hey, this is what's happening. This is when it's going to happen. This is what you can expect. And to deliver that news for just all the fans and people who had been kind of following me for a while, looking for Dune news and hoping to get some light shed on that, was really, really rewarding. And I was just really proud of how Zach was able to work with me and make sure everything was lining up in the right place. Now everyone was kind of willing to trust me with the news and break it, the way that I did. And, not a day later, Warner Brothers confirmed it officially. They confirmed exactly what I said the day before. And then slowly but surely, the teaser itself has been leaking out online, images from it, full, bootleg cam from in theaters. And so the reception's been really great. It's nice to see everyone kind of see for themselves that it is true, it is real, it exists. And the full trailer is, in fact, coming on September 9th, a week from tomorrow. So I am so incredibly excited. It's been more fun the last week talking about Dune and Dune news than it was in the last 3 months. So,
and you've become somewhat of, you're a great film critic, great about news, about all kinds of movies and entertainment stuff, but you've become somewhat of like the Dune beat writer. Like, you're looked to as a reliable source in this. Like, when I explain to Dune, like, people who aren't really like fans of it or like know much of it, like, I feel like an easy way to describe it is like, oh, it's one of those things like a Star Wars, like a Harry Potter, where it's got this like rabid fandom of people who are just like obsessed with it. And so then they're like, oh, okay, so that's why this is taking off so much. But so within that fandom, you've become, whether it's through an interview with Donald Moet or Ask Me Anything with the language creator, or just like any sort of just tweeting out photos and article links and stuff, quotes, that you've become like this kind of go-to source. So that, just to be able to see that, like, I know it doesn't really feel like work for you because it's something that you're like as equally excited and passionate about as the fans who follow you are. But like, to see that kind of reliability pay off, that this one of these sources, you didn't reach out to them, they reached out to you to be like, hey, I know you're big into this. Here's some info about the trailer. Like, to see that pay off is just awesome.
Yeah, thank you, man. It was definitely it was a big payoff, and it has been kind of surreal to be following this movie so closely for so long. And when a film's first trailer is a big deal. It's the first time you actually get to see the motion picture in motion, and to be one of the first people probably in the world to actually see the footage, and then the first to really announce it on our website, was just very rewarding, very fun, and probably maybe the proudest moment I've had so far working for the site. So, and of course that wouldn't be possible without your support and you giving me the platform to do it. So hey, gotta shout out the editor in chief. But yeah, no, it was definitely awesome, and I just know the next week is going to be just as fun. So
right, like Johnny said, the big news here: 9 a.m. September 9th. That's next Wednesday. The trailer's going down online.
Yes, and that's 9 a.m. Pacific
9
Standard Time.
So that's noon.
Noon on the East Coast of the U.S. So
we have a lot of stuff cooked up. So all of those all of those 30,000 people who came and checked out the article the first time, make sure you're coming back to the podcast, to the YouTube channel, to the website, to everything. So we will try our best to deliver on all that stuff as well. But one final piece of news before we move into this miniature Tenet review. I don't think this one is as big of a trailer for you as it was for me, or anything compared to the Tenet trailer, but we got our first look at Netflix's The Haunting of Bly Manor earlier this week. That is an anthology series on Netflix from Mike Flanagan, the director of Dr. Sleep, like a horror thriller kind of show. Have you seen, the first season is The Haunting of Hill House. Did you watch that?
I have not been able to watch that yet. Anyone that knows me knows that I am.
You're a huge movie guy, but like the TV, I know that's like in our discussion, the TV is like a sort of a blind spot, with the exception of like some of the major shows.
Yeah, I'm slow on the uptake with TV, and unless it's something huge, then I am typically, I don't watch it usually. But I have heard nothing but amazing things about Haunting of Hill House.
It's very cinematic in the way that like, one of the biggest claims to fame for it is like, I think it was episode 6 of the Hill House season, that it was like they did the whole episode in 3 shots, so it was like a 1917 type vibe of like continuous throughout this mansion during the middle of a thunderstorm.
That's so cool.
But it's very like technically well done. The performances are great. Victoria Pedretti, shooting blanks here probably, but the show if you watched, I doubt you did, but she was on season 2 of that for Netflix fans out there. But it's a great show. I have screeners from Netflix. I've been slowly working my way through it. So with over a month in advance, I'm going to have lots of Bly Manor content cooked up come October 9th when this hits Netflix. So I'm excited. I hope the listeners out there are as well. And maybe by the time this rolls around, you can check out Hill House and be ready for this. But even if you don't, like I said, it's an anthology series, so this is a completely new season, new storyline. Some of I believe 4 actors from Hill House are continuing over to this one. So very, very excited for that. So
can't wait.
With that being said, it's time to get into this little spoiler-free Tenet review.
To do what I do, I need some idea of the threat we face.
As I understand it, we're trying to prevent World War III.
Nuclear holocaust.
No. Something worse.
All I have for you is a word. Tenet. It'll open the right doors, some of the wrong ones too.
You have to start looking at the world in a new way.
And try to understand it. Feel it.
More about, I want to say this will probably be general thoughts on the movie, of course, but more about the movie-going experience. I know you touched on this, Johnny, that you drove 8.5 hours round trip to Virginia. What was that like? First of all, did Reagan go with you, or was this solo?
Okay. So for those of you who don't know, Reagan is my girlfriend.
Jake's gonna love that shout out.
Yeah. Hey, do you not have a girlfriend? So basically, no, I did this solo. Unfortunately, she is still in college, so she could not make it because of class. So I did it solo, drove it, the whole way alone, and it was, the drive honestly wasn't terrible. I understood what it was going to be like, and I love driving in general, so not too big of a concern. Once I actually got into the movie theater, it was very strange because, I haven't been to a movie theater since March when I saw Emma, which was a good movie. Go check that out. But this is obviously a very different experience. Tenet in IMAX, big sound, huge screen, and from Christopher Nolan, one of the greatest filmmakers working today. I am one of his, I love his filmography. The Dark Knight is one of those movies that made me fall in love with movies when I was a kid. And I think just his output even recently has been really strong, with Dunkirk being maybe his best work as a director. And as a fan of science fiction, as a fan of action, this was just so up my alley. I got into the theater. Everyone was wearing masks, walking around. You could definitely tell it was a limited number of showings, a limited capacity in those showings, because there was a lot less people than you might usually expect, which is comforting because you have your own, your personal space, and you can walk around, not have to bump into people and whatnot.
How many people would you guess were in your theater? I mean, you were in an IMAX theater, so it was gigantic.
Yeah.
But what was that like?
It's tough to say. It was, they say 30, 40%. I'd say maybe, and it was in the seats that were allowed in the capacity. I think it was almost sold out. It was probably close to sold out.
Okay, so about
I'd say at least 100. I'd say at least 100.
Gotcha.
So, but you wouldn't, again, very spaced out. There was no one in the theater that had, in any one individual party. Again, I was by myself. I had no one sitting directly in front of me, directly behind me, or directly next to me on either side. So I felt good. The guys that I could see near me wore their masks. I'd say, 90% of the movie. Some of them snacked a little bit, but everyone seemed to take it pretty seriously. No issues, no complaints that I heard from anyone. So I felt safe enough. And, it's your own personal decision. Obviously, everyone has to think about their own circumstances and where they are living and who they are interacting with. But I felt great. And it was great to just sit down, look up at the screen, see
and fade away from everything. That's been my biggest thing in quarantine, is that it's like at the theater, that's like sacred ground for me, because it's like
it is.
Phone is on do not disturb, like Apple Watch is turned off, like everything, like I'm locked in. Like there's nobody can text me or do anything to distract me. But like when I'm at home, it's so hard, especially just like the way that news is right now, where like you never know what's happening in the world. That it's like I feel like I have to stay connected. So like that's the biggest thing that I've missed from the theater going experience.
Yeah, I 100% understand that, and I agree. It hadn't even really occurred to me, I don't think, until I was back in the theater. But I've sat down and watched a movie hundreds of times since the last time I was in a movie theater 5 months ago, and maybe a very, very small fraction of those times was there not a time where I had to stop the movie for a few minutes, or I was on my phone for a little bit or something like that. And to be in there locked in, fully attention with, to see it with an audience. You say what you want about moviegoers these days or your own experience, but in my experience, largely, I have pleasant crowds. I think it's always more fun to see an opening night movie.
Definitely,
if it's a huge event film. And it felt good to be back in kind of experiencing something in a communal area, and to feel, pretty safe at the same time was also promising as well. So it was great. I'm glad that I did it. And I would do it again in a month to go see Wonder Woman 1984 if I had to. So yeah, pleased all around.
Maybe by that time things will be a little better. And maybe if that's the case, then you could make the trip down to me, and we could do that little, you could not have to drive so far, maybe like stay the night. We could make a day of it and then have a 15-minute drive instead of 8.5 hours.
That'd be fun as hell. I'm down.
But so I know you said you're glad you did it, but let's talk about this movie a little bit. Again, in general terms, it's got a 78% critic score, 92% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. However, that is with only 38 reviews from the audience. So that might change as more people have seen it. But general thoughts, what did you take away from this movie after so much dialogue around it? Good, bad, opening theaters, saving theaters. Just what were the takeaways here?
Yeah, it felt like the movie that was never going to come in a lot of ways, like similar to
like
the
New Mutants.
Yeah. Again, very different films, of course, and very different interest levels for me. As a huge Nolan fan, someone that loved Dunkirk, that loved Interstellar, again, I was very, very excited for this movie. As soon as I knew that he was developing it, Been following the trailers and all the marketing for the last 8-9 months, and my expectations were somewhat tempered because the reviews have been a little on the more mixed side than fully positive. And again, when you compare that to like Dunkirk, which was almost 95%, I think, positive, I was trying to keep my expectations in check, and I knew kind of what to expect. People who don't like Nolan, his movies are too loud, or that they're too cold, or they're humorless, things like that. Things that don't really bother me as someone who really loves his movies, or I just flat out disagree with some of those things. And I have to say, I'm almost 24 hours on now from seeing it, and I've written out my review, and I'm kind of just still digesting it. And my first reaction is just it's disappointing. And
do you think that would be the case if it were not the theater-saving movie?
No, it has nothing to do with that for me.
Okay.
All that stuff has no influence on how I actually feel about watching the movie.
Gotcha.
If this were Interstellar or Dunkirk in the same position during a pandemic, I would love it way more, I think. Just because I love those movies way more, and I think that they're much more well, done. I think this is Christopher Nolan in a lot of ways, with nothing holding him back, with no one to say no. This is his original concept, his original screenplay. Of course, he directed it, produced it with his wife. And I think maybe even the fact that this pandemic has been going on has given him even more power and more chances to do things with the film that maybe he wouldn't have had time to do before, or kind of mess with the editing and the sound and stuff like that. And so for me, it was just John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, they're kind of the leads in this movie, and John David, of course, leading the way as the protagonist, which is literally what he's called in the film. He does not have a name. And it's built as and talked about as this huge action film, and Christopher Nolan's biggest ever, which from a guy who did the Dark Knight trilogy and Inception, that's a big claim. And for me, even on just the technical terms and the level of excitement and spectacle, for me, it always felt just kind of like at arm's reach, or just not as gripping or as interesting or as exciting as I wanted it to be. And for me, it felt like part of that was on the characters, because I don't think the characters are as well fleshed out or as interesting or well written as maybe even the ones in Inception, who have a lot of witty one-liners or have great chemistry with one another, or have some sort of more fleshed out backstory. These characters don't really have any of that. And so that makes it hard, because when you have these characters doing these huge action set pieces and going through all these different things, it's harder to care because you don't know them.
Right, hard to have any sort of stakes when it's someone that you don't really have any connection to.
Exactly. And that's, look at Mission Impossible, where I love those movies, and those movies are amazing. And the big reason why is because I love Ethan Hunt. I love his development. I love Tom Cruise in that role. I love, Simon.
Hey, Tom Cruise loved this movie, though.
He did. And well, here's another thing that I'm about to get to as far as the negativity goes, is that the big problem with the reviews that came out last week that people were kind of like griping about was they just said that it was too hard to follow. It was almost impossible to understand what was going on. And, I don't read too much into that, because I think even with a film like Inception, people were like, oh my gosh, it's just so complicated. It's so, convoluted, and all these different rules and things. And for me, the Inception was never difficult to follow. I was never really confused. I've seen that movie many times, but I saw it in theaters when it came out, when I was just, I think, 14. And, I loved it then. This film, first reaction, seeing it from beginning to end, paying close attention, I genuinely don't understand the rules of the world. I don't understand the motivations of the characters. I don't understand what the objectives are, what the characters want to actually accomplish, and the means by which they're going to accomplish it. Whereas with Inception, I could tell you, Cobb wants to get back to his kids. He has to do that by using this dream technology to mess up this business deal. And then by completing that job, he'll get back into the United States. And that's basically all there is to it. And then you have all these little subplots and other characters. But this movie is just almost a problem of maybe not having enough exposition, and like the exposition that is there is so quick and so rushed and kind of glossed over that Nolan kind of expects you to not care or not question it. But when you go back to it being an action movie, when the set pieces are playing out and all these big stunts and explosions, and which all look great and it's all practical and in camera as they obsess over, I don't really care, or maybe I don't even understand what's going on, and that's why I don't care, because when I don't know what the characters are trying to accomplish or how they intend to accomplish it, it doesn't matter how many extras you have on there, or how big the set is, or how cool the effects are, because I can't relate to it. I can't get into the headspace of these characters. There's no big, as big as some of the set pieces are, there's nothing that's as memorable or as enjoyable or as white knuckle as anything in the Dark Knight chase scene, or the Inception hallway fight, or the docking sequence at the end of Interstellar. So, it's very tough. And maybe I would enjoy it if I saw it again and had it. Maybe I got to understand it more, or maybe I could, get more into that world or understand the characters. But for me, the script was not there. It felt almost like a first draft, like he just had this concept and then he ran with it and got the characters written down, and he was like, okay, let's do this. He has a new editor he's working with, and just some of the editing was very choppy. Even like the most basic scenes, but then when you're trying to follow 6 different characters working in 2 or 3 different locations all at the same time, it's just like, Dunkirk was just like a well-oiled machine. Like it was a little bit disorienting, but that was kind of on purpose. And then by the end, it all came together perfectly, and you understood what had happened. Whereas with this, it never really all comes together for me, and it just made it harder to enjoy it. As much as I love the cast and they do their best with what they have, and the score is fantastic by Ludwig Göransson, who's replacing Hans Zimmer. Probably the best score of the year, and just the production value across the board is as great as you would expect it to be.
I want to ask you, now that you're talking about that, one of the series that you do for the website is the awards radar. What now that you had some somewhat high hopes for this beforehand.
Yeah.
What are your takeaways coming out? I mean, it sounds technically speaking that it might be up there, depending on what comes out the rest of the year. But
right,
what are your thoughts?
That's a great question, and that's something I actually talk about in my review, and I link to it in the review. And you can go read that on the website.
Got to get that synergy.
Yeah, and so you're right to ask that, and it's still. I definitely am less optimistic than I was, and I definitely have lower expectations, but it's very hard to say because it is a pandemic year, and the number of films that are coming out are fewer, especially when it comes to the big technical stuff, which would compete with Tenet. Not many blockbusters are going to be willing to go out there. So, if maybe only 1 or 2 other blockbusters come out this year, maybe it just sweeps the tech stuff, sound and visual effects and, things like that. Score. But to me, it's not, if Dune still comes out before, March, in January, February, where it can still qualify, or something like No Time to Die, I could definitely see those films competing in these categories, because the sound mix is muddy, it's loud, you can barely understand the exposition half the time. The visual effects are very, very few in this movie compared to something like Dune, which is obviously a big sci-fi space movie where it requires a lot more of that work. I think the cinematography in No Time to Die and in Dune is going to look a lot better than this movie. And the editing in those movies will probably be better. So I don't know. I think in my piece, I said that it could get as many as 2, or as few as 2 nominations and as many as like 9. And I said that I thought it would get like maybe 8, get Best Picture nomination, Best Director. And maybe, it still could. It's hard to rule out, especially with this narrative as the savior of cinema and saving theaters from extinction, all that. Maybe they'll lean into that more. Maybe they'll throw Christopher Nolan a bone or 2 for daring to go out there and put this movie in during a pandemic. But, all bets are off at this point. For me, I certainly would downgrade its chances in a lot of different.
Lean closer to the 2 side versus the 9.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. This is not my favorite film of the year. This is not the best film I think I've seen this year. And I fully expected it to be my favorite and the best, a week or 2 ago. So yeah, not what I was hoping for. I hope Christopher Nolan kind of here's the criticisms that people are saying about how he writes his characters, how he writes his women, how he does his sound mixing and how he approaches different elements, and he kind of goes back to the drawing board after this. And because it's not the big budget that's the issue. He's done amazing, emotional, well-written films before with Inception or Interstellar or Dunkirk or The Dark Knight. It's just he needs to sit down and like really carefully think out what he wants to do next, come up with
characters over crashing a plane in real life.
100%. I know.
That's the simplest way to put it, it sounds like.
It is the simplest way to put it, because I don't care what you do in real life, what you put in front of the camera. If I don't care about the characters, or if I can't understand what you're doing with the story, it doesn't matter. And that's the bottom line, because Johnny told you so.
I mean, there you have it. The bottom line, because Johnny told you so. That's all you need to know about Tenet right there. Are there any final thoughts that you have before we wrap this up and get on to our top 5 ranking here, which I realize we haven't revealed yet. So that's going to be suspenseful.
Yeah, I will. Okay. So yeah, final thoughts. I'm not trying to smash this movie or anything. It's a lot of hard work that goes into these movies. Respect to the cast and crew, all that. If you are excited for this movie, if you love this movie, if you've already seen it, that's awesome. Talk to me on Twitter about it. Leave me your thoughts, and I'll get back to you. And if you're still considering to go see it, if you're still excited, then go see it. Be excited. I think there are definitely things that people are going to enjoy about this movie. There's things that are amazing to see on the big screen. You can't replicate that experience. And I think the experience, like I said, I would do it again. I'm glad I did it. So maybe I'll change my mind later on if I ruminate on it more and see it again eventually. But now it's just I can't help but be disappointed and looking forward to whatever's next that I get to see in theaters, I suppose.
What's the star rating? I haven't checked yet on the written review.
A soft 3 out of 5.
Gotcha.
More mediocre than anything else, because again, technical elements pretty great, cast pretty good. It just does not hit me in the same way that his other films have.
Gotcha. There you have it. For all of you at home who will not be able to make it to a theater, don't think you're going to see it. You can listen to this podcast. You can read Johnny's review on InsideFilmroom.com, and that'll be plenty of coverage for you. But again, we tried our best not to do any spoilers, but here we go. This is the main event here, I would say. This is going to be fun. This is in honor of the Dune teaser that Johnny broke, and trailers in general. We also got a big one that Johnny's going to talk about on his ranking.
Yes, sir.
This is the top 5 trailers of all time. However, I will put a little asterisk next to that, because I'm taking this
of all time.
Yes, for me personally, of our lifetime, I'll say, because for me, I'm taking this first of all, it doesn't have to be a great movie by any means. We all know that there are movies that have incredible trailers but are terrible movies. But I'm taking this, interpreting it in the way, these are trailers that I experienced firsthand, that I saw, that connected with me, stuck with me. They're not trailers that, I contemplated putting the Phantom Menace trailer on my list, because that's of course, the big, okay, we're getting back to Star Wars. First time we thought it was over. But for me, I was 3 years old, 2 years old probably when that trailer happened. I've only watched that on YouTube. It didn't hit me in the moment,
right,
Yeah. So that's how you don't have to take it that way. I'm not sure what all is on your list, but that's the way that I'm taking it. So
no, I will
go ahead.
I'm just going to clarify. I am indeed following you on this one. I'm putting film trailers that, since I really got into film in the last 5 years or so, have come out and have been really exciting. And I watched them over and over again, or I watched trailer reactions for them. And just, even if the film wasn't good, didn't live up to the hype, these trailers for the time they came out were mind blowing, and I love them. And, that kind of general first reaction in the moment when it did come out and hit me.
Gotcha. So this is top 5. As always, we're going to alternate 5 to 1, taking turns. And, I told Johnny beforehand, this was one of those things where I just went down the YouTube rabbit hole. So I have a couple honorable mentions since I watched 30 minutes worth of movie trailers today. So for me, honorable mentions: Logan, Hereditary, Us with of course, the classic I Got Five on it. Creed and Eighth Grade. Those are my five. I guess I had my top five that you'll hear, and those are my secondary five. But all really good trailers there.
Yeah, I'm gonna just throw out a couple honorable mentions as well. It was very difficult to kind of rank these, so don't put too much stock in the fact that they're honorable mentions.
My first one, I had a very clear first one that's like always stuck with me. But like 2 through 5, I feel like I could mix up.
Yeah, my main criteria for this was how good the trailer itself is, how good the edit is, the music, all that. How much, I watched it, and how much I obsessed over it, how much I, really cared about it. So first couple honorable mentions are Mission Impossible Fallout, The Friction, Imagine Dragons trailer.
With the friction.
Getting back the friction. But yeah, talk about a perfect edit and a great little song to go along with it for an amazing movie. And then the first trailer for Joker, which came out, I believe it was last April 2019. I mean, it kind of like shook the hell out of everyone because no one really knew what to expect from that film.
That made people go from like, do we really need this to, oh my God.
I can't wait to see this. Yeah. And
Right.
Joaquin Phoenix and the music and just a very, very solid debut. And I think that just is a good example of how important a first trailer is because that can set the bar and set the tone and completely change the conversation around your film. So yeah, those are my 2 honorable mentions.
All right. I respect those. I almost put Mission Impossible on mine as well, but I'll get things started here with number 5 on my list. This is one of the ones that it's like that I described earlier, that it's not a great movie, but it made the list because the trailer itself is great. And that is The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, starring Ben Stiller. This came out, let me pull up the official date, but I believe it was like 2011-ish maybe.
Yeah.
But have you seen this movie? 2013.
Okay, dude. Okay, I've seen this movie, but I've also seen this trailer you're referring to, and it is so good. The music is so good.
It's Dirty Paws of Monsters and Men.
Yes.
There's no dialogue whatsoever until like the classic trailer where it's like, okay, you have the whole trailer, then it's like coming this date, and then it's like, okay, one little clip at the end. Like it's all beautiful. It literally looks it looks like a high quality like GoPro Instagram travel blogger, like that kind of like, because I mean that's the premise of the movie basically, is that he's like going to Iceland or like going to Scotland or like whatever, like traveling all over the world and doing this. The movie itself ended up like, again, another one of those like you were talking about Tenet, like not really coherent like point A to point B storyline, but I mean the trailer, again, it could have been its own thing and been perfectly fine.
Agreed, for sure.
What you got? Number 5.
My number 5. This is a trailer I feel like no one would really talk about necessarily or think of it as a favorite or as a like amazing trailer, but the second full trailer that came out for Blade Runner 2049. This was in July. I think it was Comic-Con 2017. And the first trailer was amazing. I mean, I don't think anyone really expected that from Villeneuve and Roger Deakins, but the visuals in this second trailer that they delivered, with the music as the synth score, a very Blade Runner style, and it upped my anticipation so much, even though I had already been really excited for it. And that was kind of what really set the bar for my expectations going into the movie, was this trailer. And every time I went to see, I saw Dunkirk in IMAX after this came out, and I was always had my fingers crossed that they would show that trailer. And so, it kind of was the prelude to me seeing 2049. And of course that movie more than delivered, for me. And it was one of my favorite movies ever. So I definitely have a soft spot for that trailer and kind of how it built up my expectations.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, again, as you shame me, you and Jake, anybody shames me, I have not seen that movie. I don't even know if I've seen the trailer, but I'm sure the way you're describing it, if I were to watch the trailer, it would make me even more so want to go watch the movie. But it'll happen one day, especially before your Alzheimer's.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so number 4 for me, this is at the risk of coming across as a film bro, but I'm going to have to say it. The Wolf of Wall Street trailer, Kanye West, Black Skinhead. That's a great trailer. It's
so
so I
good,
feel like
dude.
the best word to describe it is eclectic, because it's just
Mhm.
like, I mean, like the life of Jordan Belfort. Like, I mean, it's all over the place. It shows like all of the highlights of the craziness of that movie,
Mhm.
from his like the opening 49 million a year instead of 52 million, and then the throwing the human darts, the like every taping the money to the women to smuggle it. I mean, it's just like all of the abs. It's like gives you the taste of just how ludicrous that movie's going to be. You've got the Matthew McConaughey like chest bump, all of that, so many iconic moments. It's just
Mhm.
it's
It's
just
very-
like all over the place in the best way possible.
Yeah, it's a very good tone setter for that movie, and
And it gave us
Um,
the Leo dancing, right? That gif came from the
yeah,
trailer.
100%. So iconic. Yeah, my number 4 would be, again, this is an amazing trailer for an amazing movie, and again, this was the first trailer and set a very high bar, set a very good tone, and this was Logan, the Johnny Cash song "Hurt" plays throughout this trailer. And I mean, what a perfect match, because you have Hugh Jackman at the end of his run. He's old, he's beaten down as Wolverine in this dystopian, setting, and to have him with this very soulful, dark, sad Johnny Cash song playing in the background. It was very well cut together. It, I think, kind of blew everyone away, because again, with the X-Men franchise, at least at Fox, is very up and down in quality. Very, you never were really sure if you're going to get something good, terrible, amazing. And I think this was something that kind of surprised everyone and set the bar, and said, hey, this could be an Academy Award nominated movie, and it ended up being that. So
Yeah, that I don't know if you heard earlier. That was one of my honorable mentions, but
Mhm.
that I feel like that song also, that's like, it's like one of those ones where it's like, oh, I listened to this song because it is in the Logan trailer now.
Yeah,
Like
yep.
that's the reason I go back and listen to that song.
Yeah, it's hard to not associate it with that now.
That's it. I mean, that's a great trailer. I can't argue with anything that you said there. My number 3, another film bro-ish pick, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mean, I'm just digging in with the Leonardo DiCaprio movies here, but Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that was a great trailer. That was really my, like, I don't know if we've talked about this, you and I, but like before that movie, I'd only seen Reservoir Dogs from Tarantino. So then this was kind of like, oh, hey,
Yeah.
like I know the name Tarantino. I know, like, this was like my entry point into really diving in, because like after this was when I then was like, I loved that movie so much, I'm gonna go watch Inglourious Bastards. I'm gonna go watch Kill Bill, Pulp Fiction, like go through all of them. But
Yeah, for sure.
and this one, like the attention grabbing trailer with putting Leo, Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, like all front and center. The this is my stuntman, he carries my load, like all of the music that goes with it. Like it's just a great trailer to really draw you into what the world is going to be like there. And then obviously the movie backs it all up 100%.
Yeah, no, that was the first trailer, I believe. And getting to see those characters, Brad Pitt and Leo, just do such a great job embodying them, Rick and Cliff. And it gave you, again, like the film itself, it perfectly transports you to, 1969 Hollywood, and the music of the era, and the fashion, and, the being on a film set, and just the car. It's just so, so good. And it was kind of, someone who was a huge Tarantino fan before the trailer came out, unlike you, it was kind of the opposite situation. It was something that kind of took me by surprise in one way, but it was also still perfectly fit into like his style.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean it's what hooked me, man. It's what got me in.
My number 3, very, very different type of film, very different quality of film, but the trailer slaps, and that's undisputable. Suicide Squad, the Bohemian Rhapsody trailer, which I believe premiered during, I think it was like the MTV VMAs, some sort of big,
very fitting for what ended up with that movie
award show, maybe. Yeah. And it was just, it made huge waves when it came out, because it had such a big audience when it debuted, but the music, I think a lot of people that maybe didn't even know, younger people at least, didn't know Bohemian Rhapsody before that, or had not like seen it in that way, and cut to the action.
The same way we're talking about Johnny Cash. They're like, the Suicide Squad trailer song.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to not, attach it, even if you had heard it before Suicide Squad, hard to not attach it to that trailer. And again, I think that was just something that really, it elevated your expectations for the movie. And I think that's what every trailer is supposed to do. But this one in particular was just like, okay, this could be like an amazing comic book movie, a very out of the ordinary, and with such a good cast. Sadly, that's not what ended up happening by any stretch. But that trailer was phenomenal, and that was another one where I think these top three especially is when these YouTube trailer reactions that everyone does these days, over the last like 5 years or so. That was one where I definitely went back and would watch people like reacting to it and seeing what they picked out and noticed and things like that, which is always fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's the disappointment that I felt after watching that movie, because this trailer, I completely agree with everything you're saying about it, and it built up so much hype only to have it just like crumble during that movie. It was devastating. But that was, I mean, if you look up any sort of like best trailers of 2010s, like this is up there.
Yeah,
people respect the trailer so much, and they all have the same feeling of just how terrible the disappointment was.
And they respected it so much that the studio just got the trailer editors to throw the movie together. So that's all.
Hey, release the Ayer cut, baby. Release
the Ayer cut.
All right, number 2 for me. So this is like a combo. I'm kind of fudging the rules here, but the definitive answer is the Force Awakens first full trailer, which came out October before the movie released in December. But obviously so this wasn't like the announcement basically of the movie. Like we had previously gotten the November 2014 teaser release, which was like very limited. Like you saw Finn in the desert, you saw the Millennium Falcon, you saw Kylo's lightsaber. That was basically it. It was only 88 seconds. But then like to get the first full trailer, for me, someone who is like you're the Dune fan, I'm the Star Wars fan. That was like my number one movie, like as a child growing up. That was like my thing. And we've talked about that before, but just to like have that again, like I mentioned with Phantom Menace, how that was it coming back once again. And then to have that same feeling for like our generation, I guess, after we had seen the prequels, like as kids growing up.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
I mean, I think that it's one of the best parts, honestly. I love The Last Jedi. You hate it. We won't get into that. But like The Force Awakens is a really solid movie as well. And I think that this trailer itself is like part of what makes it so great, because it was just like it hit all the right marks.
Yeah, no, I mean, those trailers are great. That first teaser and then the full one that you're referring to. I mean, they're just, even as someone who was into Star Wars growing up, I definitely appreciated those, and I understood why everyone was so excited, and I thought it looked great, and it was just a cool time when Star Wars hadn't been around for years to see all that kind of coming back to life.
Before the Star Wars flood.
Yeah. Now we're
again, a conversation for another day.
Yeah. My number 2. This might blow some people's minds, but
it's quickly cemented itself in your rankings.
Quickly. And I think I probably wouldn't be the only one to say this, but especially for recent trailers that I'm kind of going off here. The DC Fandom teaser for the Batman was so goddamn good. So, like, my expectations for this movie, along with Tenet and Dune for the last few years, have been exceedingly high. Like, I trust Matt Reeves. I love the Planet of the Apes movies, and I love Robert Pattinson, just the cast that they've assembled, and just everyone involved. I trusted the direction they were going to take it, but my brain was not at all prepared for just how perfectly they have nailed the tone that I wanted to see, and the visual style, and the appearance of the characters, and the music in this trailer with Something in the Way from Nirvana. And not only is it that it's not like, some of these recent trends have been to take older songs or do covers of songs and link them with these trailers. But they took that song and they interwove it with the score, Michael Giacchino's score, Batman theme, and it perfectly melds together, and it perfectly suits the trailer and the tone and the feeling of it and how it's edited. And of course it has like now iconic beat down scene with Robert Pattinson just destroying that gang member, and then saying, I'm vengeance, and then cut to the Batmobile and cut to Colin Farrell looking amazing as Penguin, and then the logo reveal is just very well done. I love how that is animated. So it was just a perfect storm. It's just, of course, maybe some recency bias, but I've watched it so many times.
I mean, you're not the only one. I've definitely seen that opinion as well, of people saying this is going to be hard to top for the decade, and it's obviously just starting.
Yeah, so I think I'm not alone in this, but it's very weird to think, this is definitely one of my favorite trailers, and I've watched so many reactions. I've watched it over and over. I've probably seen it 20, 30 times, and there's really only one trailer I think that I've watched more than that, and I've watched more reactions and been more excited about, and that's going to be coming up here, number one. So
I will say that like, obviously I'm excited for the Batman, and I was before this, but it was still one of those things where it's like, it's so far away. It's not until next October. Like, I don't need to get that excited for it yet. I mean, that was kind of my approach, but then like seeing that trailer, it's like, oh my God, get here. Come on. Like we need this to happen. So I'm with you there. I didn't even, honestly, that kind of like slipped my mind making this ranking. It definitely would have at least earned an honorable mention in mine, but
for sure.
But just because of how recent it was, like any of the articles that I was drawing from to get like suggestions, it wasn't even in there. But
right, it's so
number one for me. This is gonna seem like a total curveball. Maybe not if you like know me and listen to, like, I had been following any sort of reviews or anything for me. But this isn't a Star Wars movie. It's not a superhero movie. It's not some like obsessive fandom. Number one for me is A Star Is Born. This trailer, my God, it came out in June of 2018 before the movie came out the first weekend of October that year. And I watched this thing on repeat. I listened to it. The music itself, I think, like the trailer is great, but the music is even better because you get at the start, it starts with Bradley Cooper's Maybe It's Time to Let the Old Ways Die, and then of course goes into Shallow. And like I listened to like fan edits of people that like they like dimmed or like turned down the dialogue and just had the song and like looped it, so it was like a 3-minute track, so it was like you're actually listening to a song. Like I was so ready for this. This was like my most anticipated movie of the year after the trailer came out, and it ended up being like number 3 or 4 on my list, I think. But I loved this movie so much in 2018. I still love it, but the trailer got me so hyped. Like you're talking about going to see Tenet, the opening night experience, and I'm like in there, night one, A Star Is Born.
No, dude, I mean, that trailer
is great, and I think it's like,
so good.
Yeah, it really, like the way it's even like, this is like the smallest thing ever, but like at the very end when this title comes up, when it says A Star Is Born, and the way it goes, like the final 3 notes of the song, it's like bum bum bum, and like it's such a small detail that so many movies probably do, but like the words are synced up with like each note, and it's just like I literally get chills still watching it even after I've seen the movie like 10 times.
No, I would honestly, I distinctly remember my brother and we actually recorded a trailer reaction for that trailer, and for our YouTube channel. And I mean, I was shook by how good it was. I was not expecting it to look that good. And I would honestly throw that as one of my honorable mentions, just because it's so finely tuned, and the way the pacing picks up, and along with the song and everything, it's just it's an amazing trailer. And even though I don't particularly like that movie necessarily or love it, I definitely think it did a good job of kind of setting the tone and getting people excited. So
I will say it seems like it's going to be like a happy romance thing, and it did not prepare me for I mean, there are those moments, but it did not prepare me for like the gut punch that movie ends up being.
No, I agree. So my number one, this is a very on brand for me. But growing up, I was like the biggest DC Comics fan, and I love Batman, Superman, all those guys, especially Batman. And when I heard in like 2013, I think it was, that they were doing a Batman Superman movie, and they were getting Ben Affleck, and I thought, oh my God, he's actually gonna be really good, I think. And they they were in production for like 2 years, and there was all this excitement and secrecy around it. So at Comic-Con 2015, the year before the movie came out, they had, this huge, like, I think it was almost 3 minutes long trailer. And it was just the most epic, like real of just seeing finally seeing his Batman, and getting to see him face to face with Superman. Like it's never been done before. And it just looked so epic and so cool. And this is also before I really even got into movies. So I wasn't like, I was actually quite a big fan of Zack Snyder at that point as well, and I liked Man of Steel, and so I thought, I had high expectations, and I trusted it to be good, and I thought I was going to love it, and I did like it when I first saw it, and I think my opinion of it has gone down, but that first trailer was just, I watched, I mean, every night, I think for like the week after it came out, I was just like watching it on loop, or I was like looking for trailer reactions, like looking for other people who had seen it, and it was just a very, epic, like kind of like groundbreaking moment where you finally got to see these two characters who I had like loved for so long together, like in a real big, serious like Hollywood movie. So that probably takes the cake.
I want to say, I don't know if I remember like watching this specific trailer, or maybe it was, but there was something. It was at some sort of like Comic-Con. Maybe it was the year before, but I think it was when they like announced that they were doing this. Because it was like, I think it still has it at the end of the trailer where it's like either the Superman or the Batman logo comes up and then like the other one comes.
Yeah.
So I don't remember, maybe that was for this trailer that people freaked out about, but I do remember watching that video of like.
Yeah, you're talking about the announcement in 2013 at Comic-Con where they like revealed the logos. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like, they were like, oh, I remember that because it was like, oh, we're making a Superman movie.
Yeah.
Just kidding. It's Superman and Batman because I figured with the trailer, obviously, if the logo's at the end, like people already know what's happening. So I figured it was something different. But I remember watching people freak out about that.
Man.
I mean, I will say that's pretty on brand for you. 4 of your 5 are superhero movies. That's that. I mean, but I think that's also the thing, like with, especially for people of like our generation, like those are the ones that have like, for me, Star Wars, for you, superheroes, like those are the ones that have like the super passionate fandom. So obviously it's going to make sense that those are more like that you're going to remember them more. You're going to care about them more than maybe a Star. That's an exception. A Star is Born of just like a independent, like not independent. I mean, it was a remake, but like, a sort of like not as like fandom, I guess, not as big of a fandom.
Yeah.
But it makes sense. I like the list. I like your list. I like my list. I think,
and I have no doubt that in a week's time.
Oh, your list. We should have waited.
Will be on this list.
I'll have to go update the graphic I'm gonna make.
But no, I'm definitely. I mean, I love trailers. Trailers are an art all on their own, and it's always exciting. I mean, there's nothing more exciting, I think, apart from seeing a real movie that you're excited for, than getting that first look or a brand.
I will say that one of the things that I like dislike about doing film coverage and keeping up with news so much is that like when I do go see a movie in theaters, I know every single trailer. I've already seen it.
Yeah.
Like that excitement that you used to get where it's like, okay, the green screen is on. Okay, now what is it? Okay, Warner Brothers, what does that mean? Like you're kind of running through the checklist in your head versus now it's like, okay, I hear one note of a soundtrack and I'm like, okay, this is Batman. This is like, so that I will say I miss that thrill, that excitement.
Yeah, no, I feel that, but I'm 100% one of those people who I'm just as excited to see what trailers they're going to show at the movies as I am for the actual movie.
Oh, definitely. If you don't get there for the trailers, you're like a psychopath.
Yeah, it's you're a heretic as far as I'm concerned. So
there you have it. That's the bold statements from Johnny. He's calling out Christopher Nolan and telling him how to do things, and then calling out people who missed the trailers at movies. But so first episode in the books for you, Johnny. I think you crushed it, man. I think it's gonna be a good run here as the new co-host.
Hey, thank you so much, man. I'm happy and proud to be back on here full time, and it's just an exciting time, for inside the film room and everyone who's joining and maybe new to the podcast or new to the website or the Twitter and everything. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for supporting as we've been expanding and make sure, of course, Zach can fill you in on all the social media. Follow us on Twitter individually, but of course follow the Inside the Film Room hashtag
Twitter,
as well.
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, all those things. Hit us up at Inside Film Room. Be sure to rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, whatever you want, we're on there. Be sure to subscribe, leave us a nice review, and make sure to join us next week. We've got a double header. We're talking I'm Thinking of Ending Things, the new Charlie Kaufman Netflix original. And then we've also got Mulan, which I'm definitely watching it. Johnny, I don't know if he's going to drop $30 to check it out. But
Hey guys, I'm watching one of these movies. Guess which one I'm watching?
The free one. So that's what's on the schedule next week. We'll talk to you next time.
Peace.
Thank you.